The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to another session of Health from the Inside Out. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Kelberman, chiropractic kinesiologist, and our beautiful co-host, Dr. Cutter.
And I'm missing Red today. It's Valentine's Day, and he looks so good in his red shirt, and here I am with my standard fare.
Well, you're wearing red lipstick, and you have some red in your hat.
There you go. Oh,
And yes, rouge, or whatever you call that, ladies. So, yes, it's Valentine's Day, and so what we thought we'd do today a little differently, besides some amazing topics, is for the first 10 people to either call into the studio or email me, drkelberman@wwc.care or 323-293-3375. We have gift certificates for some local places for the first 10 callers. So
very nice.
Jump on in.
Mm-hmm.
So
otherwise, I'm going to take them.
Hey, there you go.
Wherever they're to.
In previous episodes, we've talked and tried to convey information about how to keep yourself healthy, how to take charge, how to do it yourself. Well, we're gone and we're going to the next level.
That's right.
All right. So for all of you who have never taken charge of your diet and who are now overweight, today's topic is obesity in America, and that leads to joint disease. So we're going to cover both of those topics.
Yes.
Some of which you'll love and some of which you'll be very nervous about.
That's right, because it's two shows. That's right, two shows in one.
That's right. So, again, office here, 323-293-3375. First 10 callers, jump on in. So Dr. Cutter is going to start us off tonight. We're going to be talking about obesity, and she sees many sides of that. I see many sides of that, and we will take callers later. Don't jump in just yet, but if you want to just call into the studio for your gift certificate, absolutely. Okay?
That's right.
So without further ado, I'm going to let you kick us off.
I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite topics, and you know, it's not because I have anything against weight or anything like that. It's a health issue. And in preparing for the show, there's a lot of newer data that's come out about obesity, and I want to talk about some of that. So I do have a few different images and things like that to show you. So we're going to jump right in with defining what obesity is. So what is your BMI? BMI stands for body mass index. And there's a image that will show you how to calculate your BMI. It's a kind of a colorful image. We'll get that up on the screen for you a little bit later on. But it's basically your weight in kilograms. That's right. You've got to have that metric system weight.
Come on, let's convert.
Divided by, this is how you calculate it. I can't help it. You know, divided by your height in meters squared.
We can't do pounds and inches here?
For some reason, BMI just is not calculated that way. And it's kind of an international norm. It's something that, you know, we all recognize in medicine. So BMI is a very important calculation. The good news is there are calculator kind of app situations.
Oh, great. There's
online.
An app for that.
There's an app for that. There are calculations and things that, you know, we use, and that will help us to do the calculation for ourselves at home. Okay? So once you calculate your BMI, then what you do is you kind of rate yourself just in terms of where you fit on that trajectory, right? So if you look at your BMI, underweight, you know, yes, there's a badness to low weight. Everybody thinks the skinnier you are, you can't be too skinny or too rich.
You can overdo anything.
Yeah. Although, can you imagine being too rich? That's hard, isn't it?
It's very hard. It's very hard.
It's hard to imagine that. But let's have that problem. Okay, we've got our good image here. So the blue figure, less than 18.5, that's underweight, okay? But 18.5 to 24.9 is normal. Now, I have an issue with this. I think that there are some ethnic variations to this because there's some ethnic groups that have different kind of builds. If you look at some African Americans, some Samoans and things like that, they tend to be a little bit stockier. So I'm not sure if that's an exact range, but it's close. Overweight is 25 to 29.9. Obese, 30 to 34.9. So you may be surprised if you calculate your body mass index where you stand on that realm. So now why are we even talking about this? What difference does it make? Well, obesity and being overweight causes a variety of problems, and that's one of the reasons why we're also going to talk about joints later on. Joint issues is a really big deal.
Human joints.
As opposed to the, I'm sad on this holiday, I think I'll use a joint. No, I'm kidding. Yes. Not on that. But, weight impacts sleep. It impacts things like diabetes. Of course, the joint issues that I talked about. Cancer. This is becoming the number one modifiable risk factor for cancer over tobacco, right? It used to be smoking.
Wow.
Now it's obesity. That was mind-blowing to me as a cancer professional. You mean to tell me that if my patients are obese, that's going to increase their risk of cancer? Well, I have something on that a little bit later on too. High blood pressure, of course, heart disease, stroke, all of these things, right? Not a big surprise. And we talked about liver last time. This is also the contributor to fatty liver disease, right? When we have too much fat in the liver. Also, gallbladder disease, gallstones, having stones then float out of the gallbladder into the biliary tree, causing pain and discoloring, yellowish jaundice of the skin and eyes and infections and things like that. So, there's a clear laundry list here for obesity. Did I miss anything?
Probably.
Okay. Can you think of it?
Let's keep moving along.
you're like just dole it on out here. You probably missed it, but what the heck? So that kind of gives you a backdrop on obesity. Now, something very interesting that I found, and we're going to bring back up that first slide that we showed with the blue men on there. There's a blue...
The Blue Man Group is here?
Blue Man Group is here.
Look, we brought you the Blue Man Group right in the middle of our show.
A lot of people think, okay, just because you're overweight, it automatically means that you're unhealthy. And if you're skinny, you're healthy. Well, I'm going to tell you first about a phenomena called skinny fat. And there's certain populations, there's some Asian populations and things like that fit into this group where their diet is such that they end up with a lot of fat viscerally, but they're skinny on the outside, right? So they appear to be slender, but they're not healthy. So they have heart disease and, the fat deposits in the arteries of the heart and the brain and all that.
And organs. Yeah.
Exactly. But we also have a reverse phenomenon with there's a certain population that appears to be overweight, but actually they are somewhat metabolically healthy. So the point is not for you to get rail thin. I don't want anyone to think that. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of against that. I believe in what I said, one of the earlier shows is right sizing, right?
Right sizing.
The right size for your frame, for your lifestyle, metabolism. But the key to this particular slide is you can see the second guy from the left. He's a little bit big, but he's moving. That's what you want to do. If you're overweight, keep it moving, okay? Work out, do something, walk. That's going to help you. And also the food choices. Make sure you get those omega-3s and some, with fish and...
The good fat.
That's right, the good fat. And that will keep your LDL lower, we hope, and your HDL higher. That's the bad cholesterol, LDL. You're better with the labs than I am. And the good cholesterol, the HDL, higher, right?
Okay.
Do you know your HDL? Do you know your HDL? Do you guys know? I'm going to tell you guys.
These are good numbers to know.
Something very personal, but my HDL is actually 105. And if you look up the norms, that's off the charts. It's super high. And that's because I eat a lot of fish and a lot of things that are high in those omega-3s and things like that. So your goal is to have that to be super high, okay? But this is a really telling slide here, the one that just shows the patients with the normal BMI, the third one from the left, right? And that's about 8% of the population. But that guy has chronic illnesses, muscle loss, excess visceral fat. That's the skinny fat person, the person that has fat on the inside. It's one thing to have fat subcutaneous on the outside, right? But it's the visceral fat that's going to get you every time. That's what's going to kill you. When your organs have to deal with all that excess fat in their walls and surrounding them, in your blood vessels, in your brain, that's when you get sickness. So that's the issue with the guy who's third from the left.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So the skinny fat guy
Yeah.
has a low BMI.
Yes.
But he's unhealthy.
Unhealthy.
So
that's the paradox.
So part of this is BMI is helpful.
Helpful, but it's not the end all be all, right?
Okay, it's a factor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Just helping everybody out there.
He helps to clarify me because I get off on these, I go on a roll, right? We have to communicate here. So he's helping to make sure that I'm being clear. So thank you for that. So let's get back to that same Blue Man Group slide, because our fourth guy is, basically kind of the worst situation where their BMI is high and metabolically they are having some health issues. So that's the excess visceral fat, even more so than the subcutaneous fat. And you can even see the difference in the body habitus from the person on the right to the second from the left. That other obese or overweight guy really has some definition.
And he's moving.
And he's moving.
And capable of moving.
But you see the guy on the far right, look how the legs are bowing inward. Yeah. We call that
valgus.
Valgus, that's right. I knew he wanted to jump in with that. And we're going to talk more about these joint issues, but that even illustrates how much weight impacts the knees and the other joints, okay? And the knees bear the brunt. But in addition to that, there's reduced fitness, of course, in that person. Hyperinsulinemia. Insulin is the big factor in all of this. And, insulin is what's active in people with diabetes and things like that. You want your insulin to work for you. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. You want the right amount to bring the necessary factors into the cells so that the cells can use it. That's what insulin does.
And you want your body to respond to the insulin and not be insulin resistant.
Yes.
Okay. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Like for some people, the insulin's there, but the body just says,
We're not doing it.
No,
forget about it.
You didn't give me the magic password today.
Exactly.
I'm not letting you in.
And obesity and extra adipose tissue is one thing that gets rid of the password, right? There's no password with that sometimes.
So what I think I'm hearing is that not only is certain types of obesity very unhealthy for you, but it's almost pathologic. It creates other things. So, for example, we're going to talk about joint disease in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the first thing you think of is, well, okay, so I know I'm heavy and I know the weight itself is creating more of a compression or a grinding or however you want to think of it affecting your joints.
Right.
But the reality is that the difficulty with the body to deal with fat is also leading to joint disease.
Exactly.
It's not a weight-bearing thing. So people who are heavy can have arthritis and degenerative joints in their hands.
They can.
And they're not weight-bearing. They're not, unless they're walking on their hands and I don't know about it. But,
it's inflammation.
Right.
And that's the whole problem with adipose tissue and adipose
cells. So it's
cells.
multifaceted in terms of how it affects us. Don't keep thinking it's just about pressure and gravity.
You know what's interesting, what you can do for the arthritis of the hands, I think you know this, is like knitting, crocheting. If you find some activity where you can kind of keep things moving. And again, he's right, that's not weight-bearing, but it allows those joints to kind of recover some of their elasticity. So keep it moving there.
You have some statistics, I'm sure,
about
obesity in America. I knew you would.
Well, of course I do.
You want to share those with us?
I would love to share them. You know what I did was
and are they regional or just U.S.?
I found two different things. I found an international one, and this one's kind of funny because it shows a lot of round people with the flags from their country.
Oh, nice.
But basically, unfortunately, the one in the far left is the USA. We have the highest obesity rate in the world, especially of developing nations. So it's not something for us to be proud of. And some people say make America great again, but we don't want to be great like this, right? We want to be great in other ways. But you can see that behind us is Mexico and then New Zealand. I thought that was interesting.
Very
New Zealand.
Interesting.
You wouldn't think of it because you think of some of these other geographies and economies associated with a lot of walking, outdoor, activities. But maybe, is it cold in New Zealand?
I think there are many facets here. So, for example, I heard a study about the Chinese now becoming extremely overweight.
They're eating our food. They love KFC.
well, I don't know if is it truly just our food, or is
I
it
don't know.
that like other people who aren't laborers intense or et cetera, or just have the opportunity and the money to buy more food and, sugars and eat more?
A lot of it is fast food. Fast food seems to have originated in the U.S., right? And there's nothing wrong with food that's prepared quickly. That's not the point of what I'm saying, but there's some fast food that's really laden with sodium and fat and cholesterol and chemicals. And it's the chemicals really that get your metabolism. It is really not just so much the fat and cholesterol. That's bad. We know it. But the chemicals, what they do is they prevent your body, your cells, from functioning properly. So they inhibit the enzymes like what you talked about last time and things like that.
I did?
You did. You talked about some really cool enzymes and things like that. But they inhibit all of that. So we have exported fast food to many parts of the world. And so now the world is saying, hey, we want to look like Americans. We want to be a little bit plump. But getting back to that slide, the UK is number 6 on that list.
There we go.
You can see Canada. And then as we go forward, the skinniest is way down there at the bottom, Italians, which how can that be with all that great pasta, right? That's what we think. And Japan is, with all that great sushi and things like that. Sushi and teriyaki and grilled items and things like that. So, if you want to start mimicking someone else's diet, you might think about those who don't really have the same obesity rates that we do. So that's the world. Now, I also have a slide on the U.S., and it ranks the states. I think this one's pretty interesting because
portion control has a lot to do with it.
Probably.
So when you go to I looked at the last 3, so it's France, Italy, and Japan.
Right. The French
the
eat
portions,
all the cheese.
Yeah, but the portions
everything.
Are small.
They are small.
And so the Italians, when you eat in Italy, you don't eat in Italy like we eat Italian food here.
Right. It's not a huge bowl of pasta for one person.
Everybody seems to have a sense of correct proportions.
And they drink wine.
Well, that's...
The wine helps, I think.
It's another factor.
Wine with dinner, come on. But we drink to excess in this country.
A lot of Americans drink wine with dinner.
But we drink to excess in this country. That's our issue.
We eat to excess.
We eat and drink.
We really do.
Yeah, and
Because we can.
Because we can. And, a lot of children, like French children, they'll have wine at dinner. They'll have like half a glass of wine or dilute wine or something
very
like
much
that.
So, yeah.
And it's not a big deal. But here, we're very touchy about, overindulgence in alcohol, but we overindulge in alcohol.
Most parents will give their children sugars, but not alcohol.
But not alcohol.
Right.
And if you go to other countries, you go to the cafeteria as a physician and it's lunchtime, you'll have wine and beer and things like that. But they don't drink it to excess. They're not impaired. But here, you could never have anything like that, in a cafeteria. So I just think there's a different mindset about alcohol consumption, and alcohol gets immediately converted to sugar. It's a glucose. So that also is a weight gaining type situation. So if you're obese and you're drinking a lot, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
And a few other places.
And a few other places.
Definitely the foot.
But
okay.
Did you want to see the states data, though?
I do.
I think the states info
I'd like
is
to
pretty
see if
interesting.
It's a regional issue, too.
So check this out.
Okay.
I mean, it might be hard for you guys to read this, but I thought this was pretty interesting. So the top 5 states in terms of obesity in this country are West Virginia, Mississippi, Oklahoma. I was surprised by that. Iowa and Alabama, because I thought it would mostly be the South and things like that. I wasn't expecting like Oklahoma and Iowa. Another state that surprised me is, let's see, Alaska. And that could be weather, staying inside, not really going out very much. Maybe there's like a decreased mobility plus the diet, the whale blubber and some other things. I mean, I think that's kind of
I don't think they're eating a lot of
stereotypical.
Whale blubber. Yeah, cut that out.
I don't know what the diet is. What is the diet in Alaska now?
Whatever
if
they want.
If anybody knows, let us know. But but there's favorites in every region.
There's a lot of hunting and fishing, et cetera, going on
game,
up there.
Elk.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That is kind of surprising, but it would make sense that they would want to eat heavier, I guess, because of the weather.
Because of the weather, because it's so cold and that type of thing. But
Plus, you're going to wear a lot of clothing in the winter anyway. No one's going to know if you're thin or
so everybody
chubby
looks like a bear because they're all bundled up and everything. Right. It's like, is that the coat or is that your body?
Right, so if you're from Alaska, you can call in and give us a ration of shit about the way we're talking.
Tell me, and
okay?
I apologize if I was stereotypical, but the last well, anyway.
And when you call in, you'll get a free gift certificate as well.
Indeed, you will.
There you go.
Now, the best states in the country, I thought this was interesting. So the skinniest or the lowest obesity rate is in Colorado.
Interesting.
And I think of that as, the snow and skiing and, that kind of thing. They're very outdoorsy, perhaps.
There's a lot of skiing all over this country.
Yeah, but people who go to Colorado seem to really like to hike and they really love the outdoors.
Many states just like that. Interesting, though.
Yeah, but they're doing the best, perhaps.
Yeah,
and then also the District of Columbia. Now, that really surprised me.
That is a shocker.
Didn't that blow your mind?
Yeah, that's a shocker.
I was trying to really sort that out, and I'm thinking with all of that whining and dining and, all the politics and everything, but maybe they're moving so fast that,
I think somebody's playing statistical games here. Well, where are we in California? Where do we stand?
You're going to like it because Hawaii is the next, and then the fourth skinniest is California.
Really?
Isn't that beautiful? And then number 5 is, of all places, Utah. Now, I was trying to sort that out in my head. I couldn't figure that out. Montana makes sense because there's a lot of land there, and I think people are very outdoorsy there too. A lot of horses.
They work very hard in Montana.
They work hard,
real hard, yeah.
All of that stuff. And I wasn't surprised by this. I used to live in New York, but New York is next. New Yorkers do a lot of walking.
That's true.
I used to walk. I used to wear high-heeled shoes there.
Even if you take the train, you're walking to and from the train.
You got to walk 20, 30 blocks is nothing. You walk all day, every day, upstairs, downstairs, subway, taxis, doesn't matter. So lots of walking in New York. And then from there, we've got Massachusetts is next, Nevada, Connecticut, and then to round out that top 10, New Jersey, which is across the water from New York, and then Vermont.
All right.
Where you can make maple syrup and apples and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Have you been to Vermont before?
Sure.
I've been to Burlington, but just driving through. How did you find it?
Well, I grew up in New York, so Vermont was, a closer trip than for most others out here.
Yeah.
If you've never had fresh maple syrup, oh my God.
It's amazing.
If you think what you get in the bottle is it.
No way. Wow.
No, it's totally, it's to die for. There's no question about it. And it's also one of the worst things you can do for your teeth.
But it's good in terms of a sweetener.
On occasion.
It's not a bad sweetener.
It's a very bad sweetener.
But listen, maple syrup was all the rage, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and they found that it was creating more dental disease than all the other sweeteners, so they backed off a little bit.
So bad for your teeth, but okay for the...
It's the same as with the kids who chew on, cane,
sugar cane?
Sugar cane itself. It's really bad for your teeth.
There we have it. He is so well-rounded, he knows about dental care as well.
On occasion, you're going out for brunch on a Sunday, knock yourself out, okay?
Get it on your waffles.
My philosophy is always, if you're taking good care of yourself and you want to have a special day, knock yourself out. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. It's very important.
You're supposed to have a couple of quote-unquote cheat meals anyway.
Absolutely.
Because you're depriving yourself doesn't accomplish anything. Right. And, when I counsel
you get frustrated.
People, you do. And then you cheat
Oh, my God. What is life for if I can't have some sweets?
Exactly. And so what I tell people when I'm helping them with their diet or I'm trying to get them to reduce, sometimes people are not eating enough. I find that in a lot of elderly patients, they don't eat very much. They eat maybe 1 or 2 meals a day and some tea and things like that.
They like soup.
And they do. It's easy, it's fast.
It has fluids and
it's fluid,
protein
it's hydrating,
and vegetables.
But they don't eat enough food, and so they end up gaining weight that way sometimes.
So the reality is if you're eating 100 calories more than you're burning in a day, you're gaining weight.
True. And if you're starving yourself, you're going to gain weight.
That's true, too.
Because I have a relative. I'm not going to say who
it sounds like if you do or you don't, you're damned both ways.
Well, you want to,
Come on,
everything.
Help us.
It's called balance, right? You want to get into balance. But I know somebody who's like, I'm going to lose weight. I'm only going to eat 1 meal a day. I'm telling you it's going to work. I lost all this weight.
I'm doing intermittent fasting. I'm eating 4 hours a day.
Yeah. It works for a period of time, perhaps. But there's always the rebound phenomena. So you want to really do things that allow you to have a lifestyle change, not something that's drastic or you're just
So give our audience some ideas on how do you know if you're eating too many calories? What are some of the telltale signs that you've eaten too much? You should stop.
Stomach aches, protruding bellies.
Yes, if you have to loosen your belt to eat more, cut it out. You've already exceeded the limit.
Being that I'm a surgeon, pretty much everybody I encounter, we have to stop meals for them at some point, right? You can't eat before you go to the OR, NPO after midnight. Anybody who's had any type of procedure, you know what I'm talking about. And what ends up happening is if they can't eat for several days, then they reset their appetite. All of a sudden, they realize I'm really not as hungry as I thought I was. So my take on that. And they survived. And so what I tell them, I said, take this as an opportunity to get to know your body and your appetite.
You can die without water, but you're not going to die without food.
You're not going to die without food for about 90 days, right? Yeah. You have some time. I don't starve anybody for 90 days, by the way. But it's an opportunity. Get to know your appetite. Get to know the signals when you're full. If you eat fast, you're going to miss the signal, right? It takes about 20 minutes for that signal to go from full belly to the brain. So eat a little slower. Take your time. Chew your food carefully. And also look at your plate. Is your plate nice and balanced? You've got half vegetables and the other half are kind of divided between a healthy cereal or a carbohydrate and protein? Or are you heavy on the protein, heavy on the carb, but very little of the vegetables?
But what about everybody who's only got like 15 or 20 minutes to eat?
If you have 15 or 20 minutes to eat, start off with a small plate, right? Don't use the big dinner size plate. Use the salad size plate.
That's a good idea.
Divide it as I just described. Eat that. Drink some fluids. Mm-hmm. And then in an hour or so, see how you feel. If you're really still hungry, have some more vegetables.
Are you a fan of the approach where you're supposed to drink 8 to 16 ounces of water before you sit down and eat? Everybody's heard that, right?
I don't think that's bad. But you also don't want to attempt to fill up on water at the expense of not getting your vegetables. I'm very much a vegetable fan. I'm not a vegetarian, but I am pro-veg, okay? As many vegetables as you can get in that body. And I don't think, and I'm sorry, but, corn doesn't really help you as much as some other things.
Doesn't count.
It doesn't help. And potatoes, they don't really count in the veggie category. You want those colorful things that are green and red and yellow and stuff like that, but not corn.
So every Irishman just left the audience right now.
Oh, man.
All right, so what I heard was we're about to get a call.
All right.
So we're going to tune back in.
Let's check out with the callers and see what's going on.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Tell us your name and what your question is.
Okay, hi. No, my name is Nicole. Hi.
Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Mine was just more of like a chime in than a question.
Okay.
And my chime in is of an observation.
Are you here in the audience?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, the observation was just, so picking up my nephew today, he's in high school in the 11th grade, and I picked him up after school, and just seeing some of just the children and the high school students leaving the campus, it's just strange and just like such a eye-opening situation with how many of them are just really overweight.
Yeah.
And it was just really striking to me how it's just like all of them leave campus and are go walk to, it looks like McDonald's, or they're walking to Burger King, or they're walking to Taco Bell, and there's just not really healthy options within walking distance for these students. And it's just so many of them are looking like college students already in high school because they're already so developed from this processed food. It looks like
very good observation.
Yes, they're just looking so just really forming into grown women at such a young age because of this food.
Yeah.
And the other side is that we're all so tied to our cell phones and computers instead of getting out and walking or mixing it up or doing sports or all the things that, other options, provide in terms of burning calories in a day.
But there's some great options for kids now. I mean, one thing is to keep kids in activities. getting them into a sport or dance, something like that after school, or something where they're industrious, like, the robotics competitions, Lego does a lot of things. So there's lots of options to keep, kids occupied. But I really think the foundation is what the caller, Nicole, was saying. These kids are eating so much fast food. And if you think about it, everything a child eats is really a building block for their adult body. And so kind of garbage in, garbage out. So if, you're the child of busy parents and nobody at home is cooking meals, or you're not eating your meals that your family is cooking for you, whichever the thing is, what are you going to make? What's going to construct your body? And this is what goes into making your heart, your blood vessels, all of these things. And those chickens will come home to roost 10, 20 years later. I'm starting to see, I have a 22-year-old, like I said, with a cancer. She's obese. She had cancer, 22. One of my colleagues had one who was 18 with a horrible, horrible uterine cancer. Why are these kids coming up with these cancers? And we're seeing it more and more. And so it's not just cancer. It's the joint disease, which we're going to talk about later, and all of these things. But childhood obesity is really a big deal. And, kids that grow up obese have about a 20 to 30% risk of remaining obese as adults. In other words, actually it's higher than that. Only 20 to 30% of those are able to overcome obesity. So they remain obese adults. So caller, Nicole, you're right on track with that.
Because they just don't learn good habits.
They don't learn good habits, and they also don't have the right building blocks, and they have no idea what their appetite is. That's a big thing. I think appetite is your friend, and we have no idea what our true appetite is in this world. We just kind of make a plate of food, we inhale it, and go on to the next thing.
Well, you know what they say, my eyes are bigger than my stomach.
Indeed.
Yes, that is true.
And that's what gets us into trouble. We go, you go to a buffet, let's say, and, you eat the first 3-4 items, you go, wow, that was good, but look what's still there. It's an adventure.
Yeah, free food is an anathema, right? Having free food where you go to a meeting and there's, bagels and cream cheese, I have nothing against it, or Danish or what have you, and you're like, well, it's here and it's free. I think I'm going to eat some of that,
Right. Right. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing that. Was there anything else that you had observed in that high school environment?
No, I just seen just how different from when I was going to school in 2004.
Right.
How
Where'd you grow up?
Everyone was in Los Angeles, born and raised.
Okay.
And it just seems like the children just nowadays just look so much more, adult-like. They just seem their body shapes and figures. And I think it really has something to do with this processed food that they're intaking and all the things that are going into it. It's just really changing the way that our children are looking and our youth.
And I think that one of the reasons that California is doing so well is because of your consciousness, that you observe that. And I'm sure that with the people that you are loving, that you take care to try to educate them about those things as well. And that's all part of that process. I think we tend to lose control of many things in our lives. And food is sort of one of those things that we go, well, the job is this, the stress is that of school, whatever, but I can always just enjoy food.
That's a good point.
Right?
Emotional eating.
Emotional eating is a big thing, and I think it's an indication of the stresses that we're under and how we have adapted to that. And this is one of the ways that our young people are adapting. It's not a good adaptation, but
Right.
it is one way.
And I want to jump into a little topic there about what kids are eating. And you touched on this the last show, or maybe 2 shows ago. Didn't we talk about milk?
We may have.
We may have talked about milk, but there's some milk that has those hormones in it and things like that. So now we see different labeling for our milks, and so we have to try to find milk that doesn't. But I think the milk, pushing milk and having all of those hormones and things in the cows, I think that's also contributing to the development, in kids. And same thing with the hormones and everything in the meat, as different animals are raised. getting those
Well,
hormones
we had
for
talked
growth.
about good fat coming from plants and bad fat coming from animals, and dairy in general is
Right.
one of those, like any others. And unfortunately, you're absolutely right that that's one of the factors that makes them not healthy for us, is the fact that most of the meats that you buy, unless you look for grass-fed beef or
Right.
they have grass-fed milk now too.
Yes.
I saw that the other day.
Read your
Yeah,
labeling.
yeah.
That's really important. Read the labels, everyone. And if you're a young person, watching, listening to this, you can take your health in your own hands. You don't have to rely on your parents to determine what you should eat and things like that. And you can actually be the change agent for the home. Why not be...
Or your high school class.
Or your high school class. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Why not be the one to start that kind of Let's Move program that, Michelle Obama started, or, a garden at your school or a garden at your home. Hey, Mom, Dad, can I have a square of the backyard? I'm going to raise some vegetables here. You can do that type of thing. You don't have to wait for someone to do it for you. Okay, keep that in mind, because young people have more talent and energy and everything than sometimes, they realize. So I say, apply it to something that's going to change your life and change the life of those around you.
And if they can't grow something in their backyard or in their basement. Oh, by the way, all of you growing things in your basement, I guess it's legal now, huh?
We're talking fruits and vegetables
yes.
here.
Just make smart decisions by reading, labels,
Yeah.
and here's a tip for everybody who's shopping in supermarkets. Shop the outer aisles first and avoid the inner aisles.
Yeah.
The inner aisles are where the sugars, cookies, crackers, breads, and garbage is usually stashed.
Yeah.
And the outer is produce and protein, etc. So start there. Make sure you have your meals balanced. And,
Yeah. The perimeter
Get back to it.
sweep first.
Yeah.
And then
Now,
hit the interior.
Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. This
You
was
bet.
so informative.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You
You're
too.
welcome.
We enjoyed
Bye-bye
you.
now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, we got a little sidetrack there, which is great. Thank you for calling.
It's a good sidetrack, though. I mean, child, and maybe we need to just deal with some children issues, at some
That'd be
point.
a good one to do.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, so I want to start moving into the next section.
Yes.
Okay.
The joints.
So we talked
my favorite.
some about obesity. We talked about some of the ill effects of obesity.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned that some of those ill effects are going to affect the human joints. And when people first start thinking about people who are heavier and joint problems, we tend to think about the weight-bearing areas, so hips, knees, ankles, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true, as well as the spine. So, but as I mentioned earlier, it's not just the spine, it's not just the knees, it can be your hands, your shoulders, your neck, and a myriad of other joints in the body. We have another caller. Grab that real quick.
Yeah. All right. Hi, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, how you guys doing this evening?
We're doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Just sitting here driving home and listening to you guys talk about health and fitness.
Great.
And obesity with the team. Yeah, I'm calling about this last call. She actually did, your last caller, Nicole, actually did pinpoint some good stuff, but it's also not just with kids. It's also adults.
Absolutely.
Like, because me, I'm 33. I had my first heart attack at age 21 because of my weight.
Sorry.
And, I'm fine now.
Good,
I started
good.
learning more about health and fitness, but what I try to motivate people is it's all about your mindset. Because
Nice.
it's 100% mindset, 80% of what you eat, and it's 20% of fitness. Because everybody think it's you have to go to the gym and do all this extreme workout. But it's like, no, 80% of you losing weight is from your food.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like nowadays, people really, I know I get everybody works so much and don't have time to get in there and cook, but I try to tell people, it's all you need dark green vegetables. Dark green
Yes.
vegetables are
Absolutely.
your friend, a complex carb, especially because I like potatoes. So a complex carb, I eat yams.
Absolutely.
Yams
One of the
is
best.
complex carbs because it burns faster than brown rice.
Right. Very nutrient dense. We love it.
Yes. And then you just need your 6 ounces of protein. So all you need is the protein, your complex carb, and you can eat as many dark green vegetables as you want. And then I tell people, like, if they're really not into the whole going to the gym and being fitness, you get on the treadmill. You can start on the incline of 10 with a speed of 2.5 without holding on. It's a very slow walk. I call it slow roasting a pig. Because by the time you get done, in about 45 minutes, you're sweating so much that you slow roasting that fat off. And that's all I did for 6 months. And for 6 months, I lost about 60 pounds and about
changed your life.
35% body fat.
Excellent. Excellent.
Beautiful.
You know what's interesting about that incline on the treadmill? That is equivalent. When you do the max incline on a treadmill and you go at it's somewhere around 3.6, I think. That's equivalent.
It's supposed to be the minimum speed is 2.5 to 3.5 for 60 minutes. And and when I tell everybody the reason for the incline and not going so fast is because you want to burn the fat, you don't want to burn your muscle.
Exactly. And that's equivalent to a run for some people. So for people who have some joint issues and things like that, I can't run, what have you, you can always do the incline.
Or a bicycle.
That cardiovascular activity associated with that is amazing. I think it's interesting that you had, a heart issue, you had a heart attack, and then you were able to handle that incline. Tell me what that was like for you, just in terms of transitioning from having had that health situation and then getting into your health mode. What did you do
It was I had to change my mindset.
There you go.
I was 21. It's just, at the end of the day, it's 100% mindset.
Right.
You have to be motivated to do it.
Yes.
And what motivated me was, I'm 21. I had a heart attack because of my weight. I was the type of person going to Burger King, eating 2 double Whoppers with bacon, McDonald's, eating fast food. And I wasn't really worrying about the weight, but I didn't know what it was doing with the inside of my body. And when I finally got on I bought me a scale that tells you your body age, and it was like, I'm 21, but I had a body of a 45-year-old.
Wow.
I had a visceral fat of 15, which is high because, when you have that fat around all your organs, that is what causes you to have strokes, heart attacks. So it's like I started off slow. I kept pushing myself, like, I can do this. I can do this for myself. I just really had to change my mindset in my eating. And it was like, you can still make your food taste good. You just got to substitute. If you like potatoes, you got to cut out the white potato, the brown potato, and go into the complex carbs.
Right.
See, I like rice. So white rice, instead of me eating white rice, I have brown rice. But not too much of it because brown rice takes longer time to process through your body. So I mostly stuck with my yams, dark green vegetables. And then I started blending. Some people don't like the taste of vegetables, so I recommend them blending. Blend them with frozen berries. You don't want to. I tell people I do raspberries, blueberries, cranberries.
Everybody's got a different preference in that zone, and you got to like what you're eating. So you got to figure that out. Also, for people who are listening, if you're somebody who goes, "Oh no, I'm not doing 60 minutes," well, you start somewhere,
right?
And then you go from there.
It took took me about, before I got to 60 minutes, it took me 3.5 months. When I first started, I at least got to 15.
There you go.
And after whatever I started with, I tried to go 5 more minutes every day.
Excellent.
And you conditioned your body. Absolutely.
And your mindset.
Thank you so much for calling in. We've got a ton of people on the line tonight. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy V-Day.
All right. Do we have another caller on the line? Welcome to the show.
Oh, we lost him.
We lost him. Okay.
Oh.
All right. So let's jump right into joints.
This is a great topic, you guys.
And joint disease, because it's going to probably affect, 80% of the population, some very high number. So I want to first start by giving you just an idea of 2 of the most common types of joint problems that we run across. So osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Those are the two most common. There are more. I don't want to bore you and confuse you, but I want to give you an idea of why that's painful and how we can avoid some of those things. I have a little model here in front of me. See how you see that? Yeah, that's a pretty good shot right there. If you can see the blue, this is a knee joint, and this blue represents your meniscus, which is a cartilage structure, okay? So the difference between osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis is this. The osteo first affects the bone and then the cartilage. The rheumatoid attacks the joint itself. And rheumatoid is given another classification all by itself because it's considered to be an autoimmune disease, all right? So how do you test for that? Well, rheumatoid is easily tested on a blood panel, and osteo is actually more visible on an X-ray, MRI, etc. So we're looking at knees. We can look at hips, a very common area. Your entire spine is possibly affected as well. You have 24 vertebrae, which makes 48 joints in your spine. That's a lot of joints.
That's a lot of joints.
And if you don't move them, you will dehydrate the discs. Okay, you can call that degeneration. You can call it osteoarthritis if you want, but it starts with immobility.
Right.
And one of the things we've been talking about so far is you got to get your body moving.
And it doesn't just mean getting up and walking to the fridge. Or to the bathroom.
If you're lying around, if that's the biggest movie you've done that day, that's great, as long as you're not pulling something out of the fridge with you.
So we need more than that.
And some of the things that I teach my patients is if you're going to walk, move your arms. If you're moving your arms, you're moving your entire upper body. You're moving your ribs, your vertebrae. You'd be surprised how much more effective that will be overall.
And what makes it even better is if you hold your abs in.
Well, there's that. For those of you who can do that. And then further on up the chain there then is the neck, cervical spine. Most people don't stretch that, don't move that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to exercise the neck per se because there's nothing really at the gyms. But just keeping yourself as flexible as humanly possible during all of your exercise is a very good idea. Warming up in the shower, etc.
What if you feel the little cracking and things like that in the neck? You know, in my line of work, I'm always like this. So during my cases, sometimes I have to do this just to kind of, recover and stretch my neck.
So those sounds
what is that?
Are typically the gas that's moving within the joints.
Okay.
And that's actually a good thing.
Oh, it is?
If you went to a yoga class and you sat there and listened, the purpose of yoga is to stretch not just the body but the torso and the spine such that you get mechanical releases throughout. In other words, keep it mobile, all right? Traditional chiropractic is the same thing. We find areas of the spine that have become immobile and we mobilize them, all right? That's the original chiropractic manipulative process. It's a wonderful thing.
Is that the same as like cracking your neck or your fingers and things like that? Is that
yes,
the same?
that was the original technique, still very valuable for many people. There are alternatives these days for people who either that's a high-risk procedure or they just don't care for it. There are many other things that can be done to also get those vertebrae moving without spinal manipulation.
What about the people who like for someone to walk on their back?
Oh, my recommendations are usually that they should be around 100 pounds or less.
That's going to be hard to find in the U.S. Get your child.
I understand, but I'm just going to share a little personal experience where let's just say I had a friend walk on my back and she was about 135 pounds, which is perfectly healthy.
Yeah, but that's over the 100.
But that's a little bit more. Well, let's just say this, that walking on the back should be done as a controlled scenario by somebody who's actually
trained.
Either sensitive or trained to do that, okay? Otherwise,
and not on the center, right?
Otherwise, you can have all kinds of rib problems and spinal problems, etc. So we don't even want to go there.
Yeah. Well, I know some people do that, like, walk on my back. Yeah. Well, now you've heard it. I mean, this is the expert
There are ways
here.
to do that. It should be done gently. It should be done in controlled circumstances. Most of those people hold on to certain things so that they can apply even controlled pressure in certain areas that they want to work on.
We're going to have to come back and have a show on back.
Okay. We can do that.
That's a good one.
The Walk on Your Back show.
We'll do a demo.
You heard it here. So let's go back to joints because that's where we're supposed to finish up. there are inflammatory components to any type of arthritis.
Right.
And if you see somebody who's going to treat you for a joint problem or disease, it's always a good idea to do an anti-inflammatory dietary approach to help reduce the inflammation in your body. Half the time, just doing that will make you feel better.
Okay.
Because now your body is removing inflammation correctly. And what does that mean? Yes, you heard it. Low sugar, low dairy, low grain if you want to get to that low inflammation area. Okay,
well, Dr. Kelberman.
And we've got another caller.
Oh, we do?
Wonderful.
Oh, man, I had a question.
Hold on to that question and let's grab it. Hello, welcome to the show. Tell us your name and your question.
Hi.
Hi.
So I hear you talking about obesity today, yes?
Yes.
Lovely. I was just wondering, so I've had like a history of obesity as well, but more recently I've definitely slimmed down and came back from that. And I was just calling because I love that you're speaking about this topic because it's huge in America specifically.
Yes.
And it's a matter that really needs to be handled in terms of diet and how to take care of ourselves and just to trying to be more healthier, especially in the more coming years. So I'm not particularly sure how to suggest or how to understand what particular method would doctors suggest to reduce this factor that's going on right now.
So you're saying, hey, what can we do to reduce our obesity? You know, if I'm an obese person, what can I do to help myself? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I have it. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I had it. You know, that's an excellent question. And I think the last caller really did a good job of talking about working his way back from a serious condition, you know, starting slowly, you know, if you need to.
You have to recognize the problem first. And
You've got to recognize
and come up with a
problem.
course of action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, diet is everything. So you want to really stick to that salad-sized plate and make sure you're heaping up vegetables, hydrating, and then you've got to move, right? Every day.
It's a good place to start.
20 to 30 minutes of movement. You can't go wrong with that plan, okay? And, of course, you know, just making sure that in the course of a day, you're not exceeding the daily of calories, okay?
How do you do that when you love food? Like, food is really amazing. And there's so many options out here. So how I don't even know. I guess it's like a mental thing to just bring yourself to understand what you suggest, like small portions throughout the day, the 3 meals a day type thing. Like, what would you suggest?
Yeah, but, you know, you hit the nail on the head. You know, people love food, but sometimes we need other things in our lives to enjoy, right? We need a hobby. We need activities, things that we can go to, because sometimes we use food as a replacement, you know, and sometimes we don't need to use the food as a replacement. We just need to do something else. So whether you're volunteering or you take up a hobby or you're, you know, helping your neighbor, there's a lot of things that you can do that will give you that fulfillment that the extra food gives you, okay? Because the food is for nourishment, right? And the extra food is really an emotional thing, right? And so once we learn the difference and we get into these other activities, all of a sudden we just don't have as great a need. So really, it's good that you're open and that you're taking a look at that. I would say do some journaling on your food, do a food diary, and then look for some other activities, and then find a friend to do some of these things with you. We thank you so much for calling.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome.
All right. We probably are not going to get through everything we need to tonight on the joint issue. It sounds like there's a tremendous amount of interest in continuing the food process here.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have to do another show on that. I wanted to go back and just dabble a little bit more in the last few minutes of the show, because so many of you are going to have joint problems.
Especially
whether you're obese or not.
Yeah, especially the knees. I think knees are the biggest Don't you think? Or
no,
what
it's
do you,
just
what do you
one of the
see?
many things.
So many people say they have knee problems.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's just what I end up hearing from friends and things like that. What do you see? I mean, you're the one who sees a lot of these
see
issues.
everything.
Yeah.
I don't see more knees than hips. I don't, it's
Just
one of the
everything.
many things that we humans have trouble with.
Okay.
And I'll tell you one of the issues that we have with knees. So if I said to you that I've got a skyscraper and we're building it, and the engineer said, well, then we have to get the first floor perfectly level, because if you don't get the first floor level, the second floor is never going to be right. Well, when it comes to knees, if your feet aren't working correctly, your knees are not going to work correctly.
Okay. I am loving what you're saying right now, because I have these discussions with people about their shoes.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the quick down and dirty here.
All right.
So human beings were designed to be barefoot and walking on softer ground so that we could make a flexion. I'm going to call it flexion, but just like grabbing into the ground. We used to have all this capacity, okay? So then we, for a variety of different reasons, decided we were going to put shoes on, number one. And then we got sophisticated and everything's concrete now. So now you cannot grab the ground unless you're in the park or on the beach.
And some evil person invented high heels.
Right. We're not even going there. There's
Although
no proper
they look
mechanics
good.
going on.
I can't deny they look good, but still.
So us humans lose the ability to completely flex the bottom of our feet, and we get weak in our arches. There are actually 3 arches. Everybody thinks there's just one. Okay?
Ooh, 3
when
arches.
you lose the ability to have the strength in your foot, a neurologic mechanism on our feet turns 27 muscles on and off, including your knees, your hips, your back, your spine, your shoulders. And if those don't fire correctly, your knees are going to get twisted. They're going to be unbalanced. And that little bone that we call a patella that's supposed to ride up and down in the groove gets banging all over the place and starts to create inflammation and knee pain, etc.
So should we wear flat shoes? I mean, a lot of women swear by these flats and everything, but they're not walking on soft ground. So is it still a good idea?
Mostly.
Okay.
Compared to high heels, absolutely.
Yeah. But what about just a little bit of elevation to bounce? Is that...
So everybody's a little bit different what they can tolerate. Some people naturally have stronger feet than others, but as we get older, we definitely get weaker.
Right.
And I know we have another caller, but we're running out of time in the show. Okay, we got like 1 minute left. So, real quick question. Caller, what's your name and question?
My name is Debbie. Could you tell me, if you have arthritis, is that can you reverse arthritis in the bones?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Excellent question. Thank you, Debbie.
So, the way I'm going to answer that is by first saying that you can control the inflammation, okay? Irregardless of whether it's osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, you can control it. But if you've already gone where the damage has been done, then you're going to be working with that limitation, okay? That's why joint replacements are happening at a high rate, hips and knees, etc. All right. So for you guys out there who've been calling in, you are the winners. Please email me at drkelberman@wwc.care. And if you can't get through that, which you should be able to, you can always call into the show, 323-293-3375. We really appreciate you tuning in. You made the show great. Hope you had some good information as well. I know we have a lot more to talk about on these topics. But unfortunately, we are limited time-wise.
Yeah. But childhood obesity, some more. I want to talk some more about joints, actually. So I hope we get a chance
lot more to talk about that.
And back pain and all that stuff.
Because if you don't take care of your joints, they really do create a lot of pain, and then they lead to more immobility.
There you go.
Okay, and then you're down a cascade of events you don't want to be into.
That's
true. And we are at the end of our show.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Health from the Inside Out. Each month, we're going to be bringing you 2 sessions, and from Dr. Kelberman and Dr. Cutter. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.